You are listening to Talk Radio 92.3 FM, AM 760. My name's Elaine Davis. We're here with Daniel Herrera, and we have a special guest on the line with us. We have Kevin D. Miller, and he's the author of Heart of Steel. And so this is one of the things that right now we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, and so Thanksgiving can be awkward. You can have awkward family get-togethers with. We talk a little politics here, and so sometimes that can bring up a little bit of turmoil. But I believe, Mr. Miller, you have kind of a story that kind of tops it all. So I appreciate you coming in today and talking to us. And so please introduce yourself. Let people kind of know your just kind of the premise of your book, please, sir.
Oh, you bet. Good morning, Elaine. Thank you for having me on. The premise of my book is a true story based on my grandfather's life, a story that I really didn't know. We didn't know because I woke up one day. Yeah, talk about a story around the Thanksgiving table. Imagine waking up and finding out your last name really isn't your last name. It's actually Puhalski, a very Polish name, and we couldn't figure out why my grandfather changed it. So the premise of the book is but a tragedy happened in 1920, a kind of a murder mystery, a scandal in my family, involving my family. My great-grandfather was murdered in his sleep. My great-grandmother was bound and gagged. They were supposedly robbed of $600 on their farm in Southington, Ohio. My grandfather was 12 at the time, ran to get the sheriff. So, big scandal broke out, and I discovered this through some newspaper articles that were just handed to us a few years back that kind of detailed the scandal, and it was kind of blew us away.
Okay. I think we're all
Yeah, no, that's a lot. I know. I threw a lot at you there.
So with regard to this scandal, obviously, was it like a very small town?
Yes. It's Southington, Ohio is outside of Warren, Ohio. It's in the northeast part of the state, south of Cleveland. But it was a farm. It was a very big farm. My great-grandfather was a rich farmer, good old boy, whiskey-drinking, mean son of a gun, to be honest. So, yeah, it was a kind of a small-town scandal, but it hit the newspaper. It hit the Warren newspapers back in 1920, and
now,
it was
were both of the great-grandparents killed, or did they?
Just my great-grandfather was killed. The story progresses in the paper, Elaine. It takes a couple different twists and turns, So without giving too much away of the story, it goes in a different direction than you would expect, So if you like a good murder mystery, a good family drama, it's got it all, 1920s gangsters and speakeasies and and stories that just inspire, if because it's an inspiring story. It's an emotional story.
Now, what was the reasoning for your grandfather changing his name then? Did he just want to forget all of that scandal and he didn't want it to be associated with him?
Yeah, in that generation, I think that's what he was doing. He was trying to protect his family. He was trying to cover up a terrible tragedy in our family and protect us all from it, because that's the kind of person he was. Mm-hmm. He was the patriarch of our family. He took care of everybody. He was just that person, that rock in our family. And he decided to change our name to a common name like Miller to kind of separate us from this tragedy.
So he never talked about it then.
He took it to his grave, Elaine. He never said a word about it. And my uncle on his deathbed, my grandfather's deathbed, he asked my grandpa, tell me about your life, Pops. And my grandfather looked at him and raised a finger, and he said, don't ever ask me about my life. And then he died shortly after that, because him and his siblings swore a vow of secrecy not to talk about this family tragedy. And they didn't. They kept it very tight.
Now, how many siblings were there?
There was 4 siblings. He had an older sister and 2 younger brothers and a younger sister. And a younger sister. Mm-hmm. So, and just to kind of move on, it's an incredible story about him. To me, he's just my hero. After I learned this story about him, they were, as the story goes on later, they find themselves kind of alone and on their own in an orphanage in Warren, Ohio, in 1920. Not a great place to be.
No. I don't think an orphanage in any situation is going to be,
No.
So but that would be difficult then. Were they able to stay together then? Because a lot of times orphans are then adopted out to different families. Were they able to stay together, or were they
Yes.
adopted out, or?
No, they stayed together. And here's my grandfather. And here's why the story is called Heart of Steel. He decided at 12, almost 13 years old, that he's going to run away. He ran away from the orphanage. He hopped a train to Chicago, got a job there in a steel mill, making money, got into bootlegging in that time to make extra money with the purpose of going back and stealing his siblings out of that orphanage and taking care of them and raising them.
Unbelievable. Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a story that's got everything. I mean, I can promise your viewers that you pick that up, you're going to get a little bit of everything. It's got just about every emotion in it. So people write me and say, hey, I cried, I laughed, I felt emotional, I felt anger, I felt happy, and I couldn't put the book down. It's one of those that people keep telling me they can't put down. So.
Well, now let me ask you this, Kevin. So when you were writing your book, were any of your relatives still alive that you could kind of talk to about this family history?
Yes, the few that knew. Now, I still have my dad. He's 86 years old, and he knows my great-grandmother very, very well, and my grandfather. I was very close to my grandfather, so I knew him well, but I guess not as well as I thought I did. Right. But I've got letters that, like some of the children of the siblings, had written to my dad, which gave a lot of detail because they knew a little bit, they did learn some stuff. So I kind of pieced it together, through different letters and communications, and through talking to, the few relatives that were still around that know. And my dad was a very, played a big impact on providing information.
Well, were there some things that you discovered that your father wasn't even aware of?
Well, yeah. The first thing was that our name wasn't Miller. I mean, he didn't even have any idea. He had no idea about that. And then, through the newspaper articles because we uncovered more, once we started investigating. And, I started researching. I went back to Warren, Ohio, and went to the Trumbull County records and I actually found the farm where the farm was located. It was like a 98-acre farm. It was a very rich farm. And then I visited where the orphanage was. There's a hospital that sits there now where the orphanage once stood. And just through the research, we discovered a lot of things that just, we just did not know.
Well, now, was your father or any of your relatives upset that you had uncovered this information, or were they grateful?
They were grateful. I was a little worried about that when I wrote the book. I mean, my dad, asked me to write the book, and he thanked me when I wrote it. But I've had other relatives. I've met a lot of relatives I didn't even know I had now because they've reached out to me and contacted me, and every single one of them has thanked me for writing the story about my grandfather and their grandfather and father and mothers. So it got a positive response from all my family members, which I was relieved and happy for. Yeah,
that's where I would be kind of concerned.
Right,
that
exactly.
Some people would be, concerned that you brought up things that
Sure.
Obviously family members had wanted to leave,
Sure.
Buried.
Yes. It was a risk. It was risky. But I felt after I read the story, I was so moved by my grandfather. I just wanted to tell this story. I wanted to tell his story because I really felt it's a story that needed to be told. And he's not a kind of man that would talk about himself. He wants to. He would want to talk about you. How's your day? How's your? That's the kind of person he was. And I just wanted to honor him by telling his story, and also. I think it's a story that will inspire people. People will be moved by the story if they read the book.
All right, now we're getting ready to go up on a break, and I wanted to make sure that I could hold you through the break. Is that all right,
sir?
Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
That's perfect.
And so when we come back from the break, I just want to kind of get your perspective on kind of, I'm really grateful that you do highlight your grandfather's courage, because I think that even at 12, he had to show a lot of courage and a lot of determination and perseverance to overcome something that's so tragic and so, you can kind of fall back into a shell and into victimhood, but he actually took that challenge and wanted to really improve his family's life and really be a champion for them. So I think that's what I kind of want to highlight. I want to get you to talk more about, his heart, and then also, talk about, it's getting ready to be Thanksgiving. So just some of those kind of tips that you might have maybe about dealing with some of that sort of family baggage. Okay? Hold on for just a moment, please, sir.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Oh, you're making me hungry. I'm getting ready for Thanksgiving. One of the things that I so enjoy about Thanksgiving and my family is I get to go over to my father-in-law's house, and he likes to cook. So I'm super grateful for that. I am very thankful that I get to just stuff my face. But anyway, you're listening here to Knoxville's Morning News. My name's Elaine Davis. We have Daniel Herrera here with us. And we have a special guest on the line with us. We have Kevin D. Miller, and he has written a book. It's entitled Heart of Steel. And if you're interested in purchasing his book, you can go to their website, heartofsteelbook.com. It's also on Facebook. You can go to facebook.com, and then it's /heartofsteelbook/. And so, Mr. so much for holding for me through the break. I appreciate that. And so just for those folks who have just now joined us, just kind of give a quick little synopsis of what your book is about, please, sir.
My book is about a true story of my grandfather. At 12 years old, he had experienced a severe family tragedy back in 1920 where my great-grandfather was murdered in his sleep. And it was kind of a scandalous thing broke out. He was sent to the sheriff. After the certain twists kind of come and they find out the truth, my grandfather and his siblings end up in an orphanage on their own. He escapes that orphanage, rides a train to Chicago in order to get enough money to go back and steal his siblings out of that orphanage and take care of them. Then later on, he grows up, and he's not a perfect guy either, but he has his problems. He meets my grandmother towards the end of the book there, and she kind of helps him deal with the tragedy in his past.
So now let me ask you this: when was it that they were murdered? Like what time of the year? Was it like in the fall, spring?
Yeah, it was September 13th, 1920, in rural Ohio.
Now you weren't ever around your great grandfather, but you were around your grandfather, right?
Yeah, I knew my grandfather very well. Had a close relationship with him.
Right, and so did he ever sort of? Did you ever? Like during that time, did he ever seem forlorn, or did he ever seem like during that time in September that you kind of wondered why does he kind of seem this way, or did he seem different?
He did not, and that's part of his heart of steel, because he was a strong man. He would just take the burdens of the family upon himself, and he had that strength. He was that rock in our family. But no, he was always positive, and he was always there for you. If you needed him, he was there for you, and that's how he was with all his family. It's like, what he taught me was you take care of your family. No matter if you have disagreements and stuff, you got each other's back.
And I think that that's an important lesson for us to realize right now at this Thanksgiving time, is that we do talk about, how there's a lot of division, and a lot of times that we do have, animosity towards different family members. But at the same time, we need to recognize and realize that that's who we should depend upon, that's who we should turn to in crisis, and then also in joy as well, that's who is going to celebrate our life and also help lift us up in those times of struggle.
Totally agree with that statement, Elaine. Totally agree. I think around the Thanksgiving table, you get the people who've got that want to talk the politics or want to just kind of, bring everybody down. But I think the important thing that my grandfather taught me is hey, this is your family, and we're going to have disagreements, and there's nothing wrong with disagreements because we learn from each other from that. It's okay to disagree. But I think when, someone gets obnoxious and then gets out of line and stuff, you got to take that, you got to take the conversation. You kind of got to pick them up. There's something going on there, something wrong there. Kind of pick them up, turn the conversation to sports or the movies or something else.
Exactly.
kind of pull them away from that a little bit.
Well, now, do you think that there's so many of you see all of these different sort of new things now about 23andMe or all of the different DNA and registry researchers and all that.
Yeah.
Do you think that those actually are beneficial, or do you think that that's just more of a gimmicky type thing?
I actually think they're beneficial, Elaine. I'm a kind of an advocate of them, although, I caution people that want to do this, that you might find something that you didn't want to know, so go into it knowing, that you might learn something that might shock you or surprise you. But I took the DNA 23andMe, and I used Ancestry to also trace my family line. And I learned a lot. I learned where my great-grandparents were from in Poland, and I'm 39% Polish. I learned that. So
yeah, it's interesting. I took the 23andMe in July, and I found out I was 53% Native American.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. So I would say yes. I would say go for it. Do it because I want to know. I mean, even though there's some painful memories, with family and the past and stuff, I want to know those things. I want to embrace those things. That's who I am. That's where I came from. I want to know. I don't want to be sheltered from that, and that's just my personal choice.
And so that's where I think a lot of people too, they're curious about things, and at the same time, it does help you to kind of show the connectedness of all of us in relation to each other, that we really are one big family across this world.
Exactly. I think it does.
Okay, well, Mr. Miller, we really appreciate your time today. Just let people know how they can, if they want to connect with you and or your book, where they can reach out to do that, please, sir.
Absolutely. You can go to my website at heartofsteelbook.com. I've got all my social media icons at the top there. There's links to Amazon and Barnes & Noble where you can purchase the book. It's available in ebook and paperback on Amazon. It's available in paperback on Barnes & Noble. And there's an option on the homepage where you can get an autographed copy if that's what you'd like. You could order that as well. And my email address is on there too. Yeah, it's a great gift for Christmas. If you've got family that are readers, this is the perfect book for them because I promise your listeners, you won't be able to put this book down.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you and your family have a wonderful Thanksgiving and have a blessed Christmas.
You have a blessed Christmas and a wonderful Thanksgiving too, Elaine. Thank you so much for allowing me on your show. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.